Hey YouTube, it's Jeff at Darkmoon Metals, and today is not going to be your average video. I'm not going to be doing any welding or fabrication, machine work or smithing or anything like that. Over the past couple of months, actually some of these stretch back quite a few months, people have been asking me all sorts of different questions about my business and how it works and behind the scenes stuff. And I truly don't mind getting asked those questions, and I do respond to some people through email or over YouTube, things like that. Today, I want to make a video that I really did not want to make just because I think the information is valuable and there are a lot of curious people out there. I'm going to make two apologies right up front. My throat's a little scratchy today, so I will be sipping on water. And if you hear this weird crunching or grinding noise in the background, a couple houses down, they're putting a new foundation in for an addition. So if it sounds like there's two garbage trucks wrestling in my driveway, that's what that is. The topics that I'm going to talk about, I have 5, and I'm going to try to condense them as much as I can because I don't want to waste your time. Because frequently asked question videos aren't everybody's cup of tea. I know that I very rarely watch them, and I don't like the even concept of making one, but here we are. They want to know, let's see, basic questions, here they are. I had to write them down. Business, basically how it's working, is it working, that sort of thing. Was my schooling and my education worth it as far as my vocational choices? Time versus money, and I'll get into that a little later. And is YouTube, is this investment of my time into YouTube a worthwhile thing? So let me break it down and I'll just give you an idea of where I am. I owned a home in Oxford, Connecticut, and I had put $200,000 into that home, and it was a list price of like $307. So I had almost a full 2/3 invested into that house. In 2007, I had an issue where I had lost my job, and it's a very negative story, and it doesn't involve like law enforcement or anything. I'll give you the basic rundown. I was working for a company. It's why I moved to Oxford in the first place. And I was hanging gutters. I was working for a roofing crew and things like that. And I pursued different opportunities while I was up there. One job just dried up. Another job, they told me that I want to make you a crew chief. You know your stuff. Rah, rah, rah. You know, here you are. Just go. Here's a truck. Here's a crew. Have fun. You obviously know your stuff. And there was a day when we just hit the ground running. It was about 8 in the morning. We got to a job site around 10 because we had to drive 2 hours. And we worked straight through lunch, and we had finally wrapped up around 5 o'clock. Shortly after that, I had gone home, and I remembered a friend of mine was having a housewarming party. So I drove to the housewarming party, and you know, I was handed a glass of champagne, and I was having a good time, and I'm just sipping on the champagne. And the next thing I know, I woke up in the emergency room at a local hospital. They told me that I had fallen down a flight of stairs. And I said, I had 1 glass of champagne. There is no way I was drunk. They're like, no, you weren't drunk. You are diabetic. And your blood sugar was, well, a train wreck. And they gave me a shot of insulin, and I had remembered that throughout the entire day, all I did was sip on iced tea, and I had not eaten. So the champagne was just enough where it kicked my sugar up, where I was talking to somebody, I started to slur my words really bad. The next thing they knew, I was falling down the stairs. They let me out of the hospital at about 4 in the morning, and I called into work because obviously I was in no condition to climb ladders. I was just exhausted. And the following day, I had gone in, worked the entire day with no problems, and when we got back, I pulled the truck into the bay. Owner's secretary comes out and said, you know, he wants to see you in the office. So I went in and said, hey, what's up? And he goes, well, we need to talk. I need a note from your doctor that says you are able to do this job. And I said, I've been working here for almost 2 months. If you had any reservations about me doing the job, I think it would have come up by now. He goes, no, I can't have you at the top of a ladder, get dizzy, and fall 30 feet. And I said, okay, well, that's reasonable. But my benefits don't kick in for 30 days. I don't have a doctor. And he goes, well, then I can't have you working on the crew. Well, what if I just worked on the ground? I'll make up all the gutters and the guys can hang them. He goes, well, that's not really what I'm hiring you for, and that's not why you're here. And he just gave all these BS excuses. And the next thing I know, I have no job. So I called the state's labor board and said I got fired because of a medical disability, which basically it is. And they said, you have a wonderful case, no problem. And this was right around 2007 when all of the housing and everything started to go south in this country and people were losing their homes. So everybody who was in a situation where they were becoming unemployed, they were calling the state for assistance too. And even though I had a case where I could have won, the state couldn't get to me until about 4 months after my foreclosure was final. So I lost the investment in the house, I lost a lot of the stuff that was in it because I just couldn't move it anywhere. And that's pretty much why I am here. I decided I wanted to work for myself because I can't do that to myself. I don't want to have my destiny in the hands of other people. I also have another medical issue where I have bones fused together in my ankles, and it's a birth defect. I've had it my whole life, but standing for long periods of time, I just can't do that. My feet, they don't swell up, but they hurt really, really bad. It hurts to walk, and it's just painful, and I've decided I don't want to deal with that anymore. So long hours climbing up and down ladders, taking 10 a leave every day to stay on my feet just isn't worth it. It's not worth it to myself as far as finances. It's not worth it to myself as far as the medical problems from taking that much sodium-based medication. And of course, I didn't have a doctor, so I was self-medicating with a leave. Always a great idea, right guys? So that's the why behind the business. After I lost the house, my finances were in the toilet enough where I qualified for a student loan. Which brings me to the next topic. Was my schooling worth it? No, not at all. I went to Lincoln Technical Institute, and I walked in, I told the recruiter that I had some medical issues with the whole standing thing. I told them that I would need to probably get like a student job because they had some available on campus, and they said that won't be a problem. And everything looked good. I took out the student loans, I started school. The first thing that died was the student job opportunity. They said that they couldn't locate anything for me at that time, and that just kept on going on month after month after month. So I was starting to run into problems commuting. I was driving 70 miles one way to go to school. If it wasn't for my parents, I wouldn't have been able to be there every day because my truck was eating about 10 bucks a day in gas. The other hitch was I had to maintain that 2.0 grade point average, and I'm thinking to myself, no problem. My GPA was like 3.34, and while I was in the school, I started to see the quality of the educational experience go down, and that's not just my observation. I mean, it was true. People were dropping out right, left, and center. A class that had started with 30 people in it, we're down to about 15 by the third quarter. And it was just horrendous. And I figured, well, at least I'm going to graduate. I get to pipe. Because my ankles are the way they are, I can't pivot and work my way around a pipe with a stick welding electrode, maintaining my arc distance. I can do an okay job, but the second you throw that puppy on a bend test, it'll crack because I'm not getting solid penetration. It's not an even weld, and there are issues that just kept on coming up with how I was able to get in a position and do it. Not everybody can weld pipe, and honestly, people who work in big iron and in the pipe fitting industry and doing all that kind of welding, I know it's a pain in the butt, and my hats go off to those people all the time. I just have a tremendous amount of respect for people who get down and dirty in that kind of welding. With me, I was interested in mainly learning TIG to get back into aerospace. Well, every one of these classes were divided up into modules. And even though my grade point average was high enough to graduate, I couldn't pass every module, which was also a requirement. So even though my GPA was like, higher than other people, they were allowed to graduate, I wasn't, based on a technicality. So was school worth it for me? Good God, no. I have a $20,000 student loan that's accruing interest as we speak, and I've got nothing for it. I've got 13 certificates of achievement. That was my schooling experience. So know what you're getting into before you go to school. If I had it to do over again, I would have gone out and gotten a $10,000 loan. I would have bought my equipment up front, and I would have watched somebody like Jody on weldingtipsandtricks.com, and I would have sat at this bench and I would have practiced until I was good at it. Because that's the same thing I did when I taught myself MIG. So depending on which vocation you're pursuing, which school you're going to, or your own personal physical limitations, those are all things you need to figure out to determine whether or not school is going to be worth it to you. I mean, my first day in the welding shop, one of the instructors said, "Hey, does anyone here have any medical concerns we need to know about?" Well, I raised my hand and I said, "Well, I am diabetic and I can't stand for long periods of time." He goes, "Well, no, that's not really what we're looking for, but thank you for letting us know." And I said, "Well, okay, what are you looking for?" And he says, "Well, 2 mods ago, we had a student come through and he passed gas welding, no problem. They did all of the brazing and torch work and stuff, and they got him inside a welding booth and they started him on stick welding. The next thing they know, he's on the floor having a seizure because he didn't bother to think that epilepsy might be a problem when you're doing electric arc welding." Go figure. The next thing, is Darkmoon Metals working? Well, it depends on what you mean by working. Fortunately, I have a space to work in. Fortunately, I have 3 generations worth of tools sitting in this garage. And fortunately, my mother doesn't want to park a car in here. Yes, I live at home with my mother, and I'm not ashamed to admit that because it's not like I'm living in her basement. This is the house I grew up in. One side of the house was where I grew up with my sister, my mother and father, and then there's an in-law apartment where my grandparents lived. I live in the in-law apartment, so it's not as bad as you might think it is. But if you are living at home with your mother, who cares, Help her out as much as you can, be a part of the family. That's supposed to be like what you do anyway. It's making just enough money where it's breaking even. And as many of you know, I work at the train station part-time, and it's very part-time. I get 3 nights a week working security, and it's only 4 hours a night because there are other shifts there. So I make a grand total of about $265 every 2 weeks. I live below the poverty line, and if it wasn't for living at home and living with Verid and pooling our resources, I would be out on the street. So no, Darkmoon Metals not as successful as it may look on YouTube, but it's growing, and it's growing by leaps and bounds. This is the 4th year it's been incorporated, and this year we are going to be in the black enough where the state of Connecticut's not going to say, "You're just a hobby, your LLC is going away." So this is where things are really starting to pick up, and it is starting to become successful. So will it work for everybody? No, it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of patience, and if you don't have the time to dedicate to a business, and in the beginning you don't own the business owns you, and you are a slave to it until it starts working for you. So I just want to kind of throw that out there. My life is not all peaches and cream, and I am not as successful as a lot of people think I am. And you know what? I'm not afraid to admit that because it's the truth. And people come to my channel, and I've had a lot of compliments because if I don't know something, I say it right up front. I don't shovel a lot of BS across my channel and try to make people think that I'm smarter than I actually am. I try to find creative ways to solve my problems, and you see that. It's evident in my shop videos, but I do it behind the scenes with my financial issues too. Will Darkmoon Metals work? Absolutely. One day this business is going to support me, it's going to support Verid, it's going to be able to support Dana, and I have so many people who believe in this. They are helping me every step of the way. And the hardest part for me, I always wanted to do things on my own to prove I could do it. The hardest part for me is accepting help. And that's one of those things that if you have the same problem, swallow it. Take the help from the people who are willing to give it to you because they see value in what you're doing. Time versus money. All right, what does that mean? Well, that's how I'm phrasing it. And in a nutshell, how do you know if you should take the time to build something or buy something? How do you determine where you should throw your money and where you should throw your time? Basically, it's cash management and time management. And I got a really great comment the other day from a new friend on YouTube, and he said that, Jeff's a really smart guy and he does everything for very little money. And honestly, that's out of necessity. That's not a skill. It's something that I have to do. And it helps me be creative and think outside the box. But I'm going to use this hammer as an example. This is a regular, I think it's like a 2-pound hammer that I use when I do blacksmith work. Now, time versus cash. First thing you need to do is set your rate. Just imagine that everything that you do, you want to shoot for a target of, let's say, $20 an hour. Once you are at your $20 an hour mark, now you don't have to be earning it, that's just kind of like a baseline. Start asking yourself some questions. Do I want to go and make myself a hammer, or do I want to buy myself a hammer? Well, to make it, I might have to go to the scrapyard, hunt around, see if I could find a piece of steel. I may have to order a piece of steel. I might not be able to order just something the size of a hammerhead. I might have to order something that's like 30 inches long or 24 inches long or something like that. The initial investment on the material might be more than it would cost just to go out and buy a hammer. If you want a specialty hammer, like let's say you're making a doming hammer, should you make it yourself, or maybe you want to go buy one from Alex Steel? He's got tons of videos on, shows exactly how he makes them. And he does the blacksmithing classes and all that stuff. But there are sources out there. So should you buy it or should you make it? That depends on your skill level. I know that if I set my goal at $20 an hour and I have a job come through the door and it's going to take me 2 hours and I quoted a price of, let's say, $150 depending on what the job is, I am definitely meeting or exceeding my goal of a minimum of $20 an hour. With the spring-loaded center that I made on the lathe a couple videos ago, the cheapest one that I could find anywhere, and they weren't even to my liking, they were running like $189. Not only did I complete that project in a couple of hours, I also managed to get a YouTube video out of it, and I managed to share that experience with you folks out there. So for me to go out and spend almost $200 on something I made myself out of essentially scrap that I had laying around, that was definitely worth the investment of time. I saved myself money. And that's how I've been running the business. I've been trying to weigh, what should I throw money into? What should I just, go to the lathe or go to a machine, and what should I make on my own? That's the key to starting off if you've got no financial backing. And I had nothing. I had all my tools, thank God. But that's basically how I've been running things. When people ask me, well, how much do you charge for your work? Well, it depends. You may remember, if you've watched my TIG welding cast iron video, sounds like my air compressor is finally running out of air. If you watched my TIG welding cast iron video, you may remember that I did a stove door, and I only charged like $40 or $60 for it, I don't even remember. And professional shops charged like, 4 times that for the same thing. And there are a few people out there like, you're nuts, you're short selling yourself, it's not worth it. Well, I didn't have anything else lined up for that week, and I was just in the shop making copper roses and a few other things to sell at craft fairs. I had no money coming in immediately. So I shot him a price, and it covered the cost of all of the rod, and I have all that rod left over to do cast iron work with. So I broke even on that job. And yeah, that might sound like it's insane, but that guy has sent me 4 or 5 other people over the course of the last couple of years or however long it's been, and I have now a customer who comes to me on a regular basis, more or less, for different things they need done. So it was worth it for the advertisement, but I also made a YouTube video on it, and it is one of my more popular YouTube videos. To date, that channel, or that video rather, has made me 3 times what I've charged for that guy and that project. And it is now on YouTube. You guys can watch it, enjoy it, learn from it, and every month or so it's going to throw me a couple of pennies, and it's going to be a residual income. Now yes, my channel is to the point where it's giving me an hour, like basically a monthly payment. I'm not going to say I'm living above the poverty line yet, but it is definitely a meaningful amount of money that's coming in, and it helps a lot, even with just the subscribers I have now, and I have below 10,000. But when you're not used to making a lot of money doing what you're doing, and you're always breaking even $100 helps. That puts more food on the table. You're eating hot dogs instead of ramen. But moving on to the next subject, which is YouTube. Is YouTube worth it? The investment of time on YouTube to make these videos, in the beginning, it's very tedious, it's very hard, and sometimes it doesn't seem like it's worth it at all. My YouTube revenue for the first month I started posting anything was like 27 cents, and I went, really? But, I had no subscribers yet, and I was brand new. If you want to create a YouTube channel, by all means, go ahead and do it. How does YouTube affect my business? Well, I've gotten jobs off of YouTube. And there are videos that I have made where if somebody asks me, hey, can you do something like this? And I could say, yeah. In fact, here's a link to a video, check it out, this is how I would handle it. And they watch it, and the videos sell jobs for me, which is amazing. That TIG welding cast iron video, going back to that for a moment. A guy in Arizona saw it and shipped me a stove door from across the country to have me weld it out here in Connecticut because he couldn't find anybody close by that was willing to even touch the work, because it was a very old door, nobody wanted to risk it. And he saw me on YouTube and said, look dude, I really liked how you did that, and I want you to do the same thing for me. And I did. So now I have jobs coming in from other states sometimes, which still surprises me. But YouTube is more than just a revenue source. Even the high up channels, like these people, Lindsay with the violin, she makes like $1 million last year on YouTube. And those are like YouTube's real success stories. But even somebody like me has a success story on YouTube. And I don't want to get into it too much because I really want to try to keep this video short. I don't want to ramble on forever, but I am trying to answer the questions the best I can. There are times when I fall onto one of my old demons. I suffer from depression, and it's a result of a lot of different things that went wrong in my life, and I kind of fell into this really bad space, and it took me a long time to drag myself out of the mud. The problem is, once you've lived like that for a couple of years, your body can just fall back into that rut again, and it sucks the life out of you, it sucks the energy out of you, and it puts you in a very bad place. And there are days now when, I'll wake up and I'll be like, there's nothing going on, I don't have any work coming in, I haven't made a video in a while, and I will sit down and I will watch stuff on YouTube. I'll watch Mr. Pete 222, I'll watch Jody at Welding Tips and Tricks, I'll watch Chucky 2009, I'll watch Dave Calabretta, who I mentioned in one of my videos, I'll watch Steve over at Analog 56X, I'll watch anybody who's out and actively doing something. Gary Hudson over in the UK. Because these are people who have come out of the woodwork, not all of them, but some of them have said, hey, I've watched your videos, have you tried this, or can I help you out with that? It's like, really? Random strangers I've never met see a value in what I do and they want to help. That lifts you up to a point that you can't describe, especially if you're down in the dumps. And I watch their channels, and I watch, Baltimore Knife and Swords on the All Me channel. These are all channels I've mentioned before. And it's an awesome experience because you can be down in the dumps, sitting in your chair, watching the computer, and you see people doing things. And if it's something that you're passionate about and you're watching somebody doing something you love to do, it will motivate you and it'll get your butt out into your shop. And YouTube has done that for me more times than I can count. So when I talk about a YouTube community, it really is because we help each other in ways we don't know. I mean, there are videos that I've posted and people are like, oh my God, that's the solution to my problem. And you start getting positive comments, and even the negative ones help, because if you take the negative ones at face value and say, I'd like to see them go try it. But it motivates you to go and do something better. And that's what YouTube is. YouTube is not just a source for information, it can also be a source for motivation. So is YouTube worth it? If you've made it to the end of the video, I just proved that it is. If you have a channel and you haven't posted any videos yet, you know what? Even if it's just a short 5 minutes, hi, here I am, this is what I'm interested in, go make a video. You might get a couple of new friends out of the deal, who knows? But that's really the essence of my business. I am trying to spread information through being positive, giving people good experiences, working within people's budgets. Am I making $1 million doing it? No, but I have several steady customers, and they are resources not just for money. I have a gentleman who lives not even 3 blocks away. He does those like tractor races and stuff, and he's to the age now where he can't weld anymore because of his vision. So every time he needs something done, you know, I'll run the bead for him, paint it, and give it back. No problem. But this guy used to work in a machine shop. He has experience working on lathes and milling machines and surface grinders and all sorts of other production equipment. And I have an open invitation to call him anytime I would need to have him come over and show me a trick on the lathe or help me solve a problem on the mill. You can't put a price on that. So that is the benefit of doing what I do and how I do it. So does the business work? Yeah, it's starting to work. It's always worked, but now it's actually starting to make money. Does YouTube work? Is it worth it? Absolutely. I think we've already covered that. Schooling, is it worth it? Honestly, depending on what you want to do, I think an apprenticeship program is 10 times better than going to school. Because I've come into contact with instructors that tried to teach me how to do a weld and show me what it looked like, and they couldn't complete the sample project because when they were out in the field and they were getting their experience, he might not have been a TIG welder, or he might not have any experience with stick. Hell, one of our instructors did laser welding at an aircraft facility, kind of like what I used to do. Didn't pick up a TIG torch until he got to the school and he was an instructor, which made no sense. How can you teach something you don't know? So going to become an apprentice, if that option is available to you, I would really, really recommend it. You may even get some money along the way. It's better to have money coming in than being in debt for God knows how many years it's going to take me to pay off this loan. So at the end of the day, and at the end of this video, I hope I've given you a lot of things to talk about or think about. I just wanted to say, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I am definitely going to put more out here with machines turning and sparks flying. This has just come up so many times as a request. I needed to get off my butt and get it done. And yes, that's another motivational factor from you guys out here at YouTube. So thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, because honestly, I'm closing in on 7,000 subscribers, and the positive influences that YouTube has brought into my life, I'm looking at it as like I have close to 7,000 business partners who give me that kick in the butt when I need it. And I can't put a price on that either. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned a little something, maybe got a little bit of insight on how I work and how you might be able to do things. But for now, I'm going to wrap up the video. And until the next one, this has been Jeff at Darkmoon Metals, and I will see you again soon.